hobo stew. Now, the good thing about hobo stew, besides the food value, is the ingredients. The ingredients is just rotting flesh. Again, if I don't want bottle of acid inside my stomach, how much more rotting flesh? But anyway. Hello everyone, we are playing 7 Days to Die, which is on Alpha 19 Experimental, and build 180 just dropped. One of the things that caught my eye is they bumped up the price for high-end foods, which is good because I had plans to cover food anyways, so I guess now is as good a time as any to create the video for it. In my 2 playthroughs so far on Alpha 19, I noticed that hunger seems to be harder to manage, especially at the early to mid-game stages. On the previous builds, I remember I'm just being able to get by bacon and eggs the entire game. But in my opinion, I think these recent changes is a good thing. They have really revamped the system so that you'll have to use the higher tier food this time. And most, if not all of these, have veggies for ingredients. So as a consequence, there's now more emphasis on farming. Now, we all know that if we go hungry, our maximum stamina gets lowered. And it gets worse for each level of hunger. And this negative effect can really hurt your progress and even fun, especially in the early to mid game, since a lot of the things we'll be doing needs stamina. Now, when it comes to food choices, I'm really only concerned about 2 things: the food value it returns here, and how hard the ingredients are to come by. So you can immediately see that here when you open the campfire. So I guess it's also worth noting that how hard it is to unlock the recipe, but personally that hasn't been a problem for me on my playthroughs, but still worth to note. So let's start with our early game choices. There's really not much here, but the best in my experience is the good old bacon and eggs. You can unlock it at the very beginning of the game, and it can support you even through to the start of the end game. So what I mean by that is, you know how you get your 4 points in the very beginning of the game? Me, I put one of those points in Master Chef. In my recent playthroughs, it's one of the things that I make sure that I put a point on, and it really helps in managing my hunger in the early game. But I think the best way to explain why is, well, let's look at the other choices besides the bacon and eggs, right? So usually in the early game, the only other choices really are, so if you unlock the Master Chef, you'll be able to cook these, and I think this, and besides this, the other things that you'll be able to eat are if you loot canned foods, which I'll tell you in a moment to save them and why. But yeah, those are the other choices really, is canned foods and raw fruit and veggies, which again are better to save. And the other ones is this one. So let's compare them with bacon and eggs, and I'll even compare the canned foods that I mentioned to you, just to be thorough. So if you're unlocking Master Chef just for 1 point, you'll be able to cook bacon and eggs, which gives you 36 food, compared to boiled meat, which only gives you 10. Charred meat also gives you 10, and grilled meat gives you 10. I don't even want to consider baked potato, but hey, if you really don't have any other choice, I guess it's not too bad. So it's just returning you 4 food. And I'm not sure if this is part of MasterChef 1, but this one's also 5 food. So this is like what, 300% more food return than the other ones, right? That uses meat. So that's 36. And if you compare that with this one is usually easy to find even in the early game. And I think this one too. But let's say you get lucky and you're able to get most of these early on. So this one's 15, this one's 10, again 15, I think this is 15, 15. Kind of stock is 5, 15, and 15, and 5. So it's really no contest. Now you might think that, hey, but this uses meat, right, and eggs. No, the thing is, early on in the game, for me, at least in my experience, when I walk around, we usually come by birds' nests anyway, and more often than not, I find eggs. And really, in the early game, there's really not a lot of use for them. And since we don't have any much choice for food anyways, it's not really a bad thing to cook them for bacon and eggs. And you'll probably ask, well, there are higher tier foods that uses eggs as ingredients, right? Yes, but I can also tell you that one of my choices for the mid game doesn't use egg. And that's also, I guess, one of the reasons why it's my best choice for the mid game. But we'll go over that later. But for the early game, this is relatively easy to come by. And even the meat, right? Because you should be able to hunt some of those animals, especially the stags and the deers. I don't have a problem being able to hunt them in the early game. And since you're only getting a few meat at a time, yeah, being able to maximize their value through bacon and eggs is really a no-brainer. So yeah, again, the other choices are the canned foods, but this is way harder to come by and way better to use as ingredients in the mid to late game than eggs. When the time comes, you're probably not even gonna need eggs, so might as well just use them early game. But we'll see. So yeah, those are the choices for early game, and this is my best choice for getting through. Now, a few points I'd like to add for the early game. As much as possible, save these canned foods, especially the ones with ingredients, and most especially can of sham. There are canned foods that it's not required for cooking higher tier foods, so let me show you some of them. Now for these, like I think pears, it doesn't have any recipes on it, and I think the miso soup, and I think chicken soup as well. Yeah, so these are the exemptions. If you find this in the early game or any part of the game, since they're not an ingredient of any of the higher end foods, you can freely eat them anytime. I don't think there's any consequence really, and it's just going to give you all the benefits, right, of managing your hunger. So yeah, these are the exemptions. But for the other canned foods that's listed here, can of chili, large beef ration, lamb rations, can of stock, can of salmon, can of pasta, can of tuna, yes, as much as possible, save them. Unless you really don't have any food at all in your inventory and you're dying of hunger. So yeah, I guess that's another exemption. Alright? Now, another point to consider during the early game is try to stock up on animal fat when you can. And then watch out for seeds of vegetables, especially corn and potatoes, which are a lot easier to find early game compared to the other veggies. And hey, If you get lucky enough to get mushrooms, well, yeah, save them too. But for me personally, when I play, I think in my 2 playthroughs in Alpha 19, I always get the mushrooms later on in the mid-game, maybe early mid-game. So yeah, these are easier to come by, and I always plant them immediately whenever I am able to craft the farm plots. Alright, so the next thing to point out is it wouldn't be a bad choice to put 1 point in living off the land once you're able to plant this, especially in early game. So let's take a look at living off the land. Putting 1 point here will enable you to harvest 2 items from planted crops. Okay, so and it's very, very good. So I will show you here. Let's get to here, my plants here. Now I have potato plants ready to harvest. So the good thing about it is if you harvest this, you'll still get the seeds, right? So you don't have to replant any seed, and you get 2 potatoes back. And if you will notice, most of the higher tier foods use 2 potatoes and yep, 2 corn. So there you go. Alright, when you go to a trader, always search for food recipes. That's what I usually always do. There's other stuff that I search, but one of the things that I always search is food recipes. And don't hesitate to buy those that you haven't unlocked yet. This will save you all the perk points needed to unlock them, so you can put them in, more important stuff. In the previous builds, some of you, including me, probably just threw away all these rotting flesh, but in Alpha 19, I'm not sure if also Alpha 18, but in Alpha 19, these are now more valuable. So as much as possible, yeah, save them as much as you can. Alright, now that I've mentioned those points, you will know the reason why, because we are now going to discuss the mid-game choices. By mid-game, things open up a bit. You're going to have more options, especially if you're able to loot or buy the food recipes earlier on. However, if you are unlucky, personally, it's not a bad choice to put another point in Master Chef, and we'll see it in a little bit why. Now, from the choices that's usually available mid-game, the best for me are, again, this is only if you're able to unlock them, but if you're lucky enough to buy or loot the recipes, if I have the choice to concentrate on one recipe, I'll go for, first, veggie stew. Second would be the sham chowder. Third would be the hobo stew, and maybe the meat stew as well. But by this time, I'm not sure how many meat you still have because you've been using them for bacon and eggs. But let's go first on the food value. So veggie stew is a measly 31 compared even to the bacon and eggs, but there's one really good thing going for this. As I mentioned earlier, if you were lucky enough to be able to get mushrooms early on and plant them and then harvest them on a regular basis, the veggie stew would make your game. You would be self-sufficient in the game because all you need to do is plant these, harvest these, and that's it. Boiled water, I don't ever have a problem with getting water in the game at all. So as you can see, it just needs potato, ear of corn, and mushrooms. The only ingredient that's a bit hard to find early game is mushrooms. But as I've said, if you're lucky in the early game to get this and plant these, so plant these immediately. As you can see, you don't need anything else. This will make you self-sufficient the entire game. Right? I guess plant, I don't know, 3 to 4 potato farm plots And ear of corn, same, 3 to 4 plots. Mushrooms, 3 to 4. By the time, I think their growth time or their harvest time is what, 3 to 4 days? So that's what, yeah, you'll be able to craft 4 every 4 days. But I think it's lesser than that. I think it's just 3 days. But that's one thing that I guess I wasn't able to take note of. But still, it's not too long. And as I've said, you can just plant more. And by the time, even at the end game, you should be able to cook a lot per day. And then you'll be self-sufficient. You don't even need to hunt. You don't even need to loot for food. Okay? Now, the next best choice is sham chowder. Now, the only problem with sham chowder is that unless you invest on 3 points in Master Chef, you won't be able to unlock it. That also includes the hobos too. But as you can see here, I didn't invest on the points, but I'm able to cook them. That's because I think it's easy to find them in traders and loot. So mid-game, they're also good choices, especially sham chowder because it only needs, I mean, it gives you a bonus in fortitude, but that's not one of the things that I really go for when I want to eat this. I just go for the food value, which is 53. And this one is even better because it has 64. Right? Now the meat stew has 50, but as I've said, it needs meat as an ingredient. Sometime in the game, maybe mid to end game, you're probably gonna get all the meat back, like a lot of excess meat. So yeah, this is probably going to be viable, but by the time, you're probably going to be using it on spaghetti anyway. But I digress. Let's concentrate on these 4 choices first. So again, these are my top 3 choices here. Probably a close fourth is this one, just an outlier, and the rest are good. But as I've said, if you consider the ingredients and even how tough to unlock them and the food return value, I find the ingredients for these are harder to find, and it's much better to put those ingredients on the better tier foods. So now let's go over the ingredients for the sham chowder and hobos too, because I haven't shown you that yet. For sham chowder, it only needs potato and corn and can of sham. Can of sham you can even make if you want. That's where the rotting flesh comes in, but the battle of acids is the deal breaker here. I haven't really pursued even if when I saw the recipe for this, I didn't bother buying it because yeah, the battle of acid, usually you need that for wheels to be able to craft those vehicles. And hey, who would really want to put bottle of acid in their stomach, right? But anyway, that's just but can of sham, however, is an ingredient for the hobos too. And the sham chowder. And the sham chowder, and as I've said, can of sham, it's easy to find these even early on in the game, and I usually just store them in preparation for the mid game where I'm gonna use them for sham chowder. And again, it needs potato and ear of corn, which is very easy to come by, and it gives you 53 food. Hobo stew. Now, the good thing about hobo stew, besides the food value, is the ingredients. The ingredients is just rotting flesh. Again, if I don't want bottle of acid inside my stomach, how much more rotting flesh? But anyway, so it needs 10 rotting flesh, which is very easy to come by in the game, along again with potato and ear of corn. Now, hopefully during the early game when you start hunting for animals, you're not using animal fat for any other purposes. The only other purpose really to use them is candles, flaming arrows, torches, which I I don't really do in my games, or I don't really craft in my games, so I just store them for hobos too. And rotting flesh, they're just everywhere. If you kill a zombie, I think you get a rotting flesh. The gore blocks in the game, when you destroy them or you harvest them, they will give you rotting flesh and nitrate, I think, even, and bones. So yeah, and this is the reason why it's in my third spot for mid-game choice, because of the ease, how easy it is to get the ingredients. So yeah, there you go. Now, a note about pumpkins. I was excited to see pumpkins in the list when they added it, but when the first I got them and cooked them in the game, I was like, I don't know, I was just underwhelmed. I think it's rare, they're one of the rarer ones from the vegetable family to get in the game. And yeah, this one gives you 50 food, but pumpkin pie, you'll need egg, cornmeal. Yeah, I guess it's okay. But yeah, and again, don't mistake me, it's not bad if you unlock these and you don't have these. It's not too bad, especially if you have a pumpkin, right? But still, and to be honest, I don't remember this being 50 food value. I think it was way lower, even on the previous build, 170. But I don't know, I wasn't able to keep track, so that would have been nice. But I know that I've been so underwhelmed by the pumpkin pie and even the pumpkin cheesecake because of the food value that they return. And the only redeeming value of this is its buff. This is actually a good buff if you're trying to get more money from the traders. This is, for me personally, a better buff from getting it from food than this one, Fortitude. So yeah, so that's my note about the pumpkin. Yeah, right now it looks like they're better now. I think they increased the food value, but this one especially has a buff in bartering, so it's not too bad to go for it. Okay, all right, so now let's go over the prices compared to Alpha 18, because we did but before that, I actually have the steak and potato meal and fish tacos. Now they're also actually very good to, if you have them unlocked, and you have the ingredients for them, it's fine. This one, again, the thing that's going against this one is it needs meat. So during the time that you unlock this, it's, I'm not sure how many meat you have in your inventory at the time, but yeah, but it's not too bad. And the steak and potatoes needs 5 meat, and that's the other thing too, it needs mushrooms, which again are a bit rare, but meat and mushrooms combined, that's why it kind of bumped it a little for me down on the list of choices. But the other thing that's weird about this is, if you noticed, there's no sell price if it's just 4, but if it's 5, it goes for 16 dukes for each 5 pieces. So I don't know, that's weird. It should be more expensive, right? But yeah, that's something to take note of, just in case. I don't sell my food anyway, I just keep them and eat them. Fish tacos too, it's not too bad. Fish tacos, I think you will need can of salmon and cornmeal. Cornmeal, I think you can craft one cornmeal per 1 corn. So this is basically just 2 corn. But I think you need the recipe to be able to craft cornmeal, if I'm not mistaken. And can of salmon, it's not that hard to find, but it's also not as... I don't often find these as easily as the can of sham. Okay? So that's maybe the only thing that's not going for it. But if you have tons of can of salmon, they're not too bad. It's not too bad of a choice. And hey, every day can be Taco Tuesday, right? It's not too bad to have Taco Tuesday every day on an apocalypse. So there you go. Now, before we close this video, I am currently logging in on the game where I'm officially playing at, so I can show you the food and ingredients I have there, the farm I got going, and the recipes I already unlocked. Hopefully, it should be consistent with the previous game that I was showing you all along. That game was the one where it got messed up by the POI reset, so I stopped playing it. But yeah, so let's go ahead and check this one where I'm currently doing a playthrough. So let's just wait for it to load. Alright, so this is my base, and let's see my food supply. So in my food supply, I currently have, right now I'm at day 44. I have more than 1,000 meat, plenty of eggs, plenty of animal fat, basically plenty of everything. I even have extra seeds, a lot of canned food, and you'll notice that I only keep the ones that are used for ingredients. I don't have those ones that are not used for cooking food. I just eat them immediately, and I have here all the food that ready, and depends on the food value. If I'm very hungry, I'll probably go for this. If not much, then I'll go for this. And I can even cook bacon and eggs quickly if I just need a quick food. But yeah, there you go. As for my farm, this is my farm plot. And as you can see, I have my mushrooms here. I have a couple of corns here, some coffee, blueberry, but my priority was the potatoes over there. And yeah, a few potatoes, even some pumpkins. But even when I haven't planted a lot of corn and potatoes, you can see how much food I got. And as far as cooking ingredients, let's just go over to my base so that I don't get surprised by zombies. On my cooking recipes, what do I have unlocked? I have hobo meat stew. I don't even have the late games one yet. I guess I have the sham chowder already, which is good. Let me see. Do I have the veggies stew? Veggies stew. Where are your veggies stew? Oh, there you go. I have the veggies stew unlocked. So yeah, there you go. So by the late game, you should already have your farm going, and with that alone, you can already live by veggies stew, right? But usually for me, I always have plenty of the other ingredients that, cooking the higher tier food is not a problem anymore. So yeah, late game, when you reach that level, it's hunger management should be very easy already. Which now leads me to the recent change in price. I really don't know the logic behind it, because as I've said earlier, I'd rather eat the food, keep it and eat it, than sell it. And even then, by the time that you're able to craft these and or unlock these, it's more often than not, it's going to be probably the beginning of the end game, maybe sometime mid game. But there's more other ways or better ways to get the dukes than selling food. It will be more beneficial to just keep the food and eat them than selling them. So I don't really know the logic behind that change, but hey, I guess it's better than nothing, right? Okay, so that pretty much is all the information I have on food and how I manage my hunger. I don't really remember struggling on hunger when I started following these steps, and I hope that this information helps you as well. But please do let us know in the comment section below. Do you have any other tips that you can give us that's not mentioned in this video? And if you like this video, please don't forget to hit that like button, and if this is the type of content that you like watching, please make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. As always, stay safe and thanks for watching. This is Kenra signing off.